Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I run this YouTube channel. I'm usually the voiceover and you don't really see my face. Um, I'm making this video to kind of like inform about who I am. Not all of my trauma, don't worry, I'm not trauma dumping yet. Um, but like kind of um who like what made me be how I am and how I'm so mature for just turning 18 soon, and how I articulate my words so easily. Um so let's get right into it. This month is human sex trafficking month. Um Not to human sex traffic, but survivors, and to acknowledge the hardship that so many people, 20 million people, have gone through. Um And this isn't going to be one of those videos where it's like, I wanted to learn more about it, so I did some research. I know about it firsthand. I was sex trafficked for 7 years, actually. And I say that with a smile because it's amazing to me how I survived. Um, but sex trafficking is the use of child sex, is the use of a person to do something. That's just human trafficking in general. It's an equivalent to slavery. It's a different word because there's more than physical labor. So, in my experience, I was sex trafficked, meaning that I was forcefully prostituted out against my will towards anybody that would buy. And I had a price, and I'm not going to talk about intimate details like that because that's not for you to know, and that's not me for me to tell you. But I was there, as I said, for 7 years. And for the entire time it was online, but it started out mainly online when I was 10 to 12, late 12, almost 13. And then when that age 13 came on, it became more in person. As in, I wasn't selling myself to others. I wasn't sending pictures to anybody else. I was forcefully put out there. Now, people get confused when people like myself talk about online sex trafficking. What the hell is that, right? Well, online sex trafficking is a child usually sending a nude photo to an adult, and that adult sells it to other people. It's like taking a porn clip from online and selling it, or Pornhub, except for it's my nudes, and some adult, usually male, puts it on their own account and sells it, and they get the money. And I didn't even know that this was happening until like 2 months in. And I was like, oh, my body's already out there. They know my home address. They know what the inside of my bedroom looks like. They know what my mom looks like. They know my mom's name because this person, my pimp, is what it's called. Um, they gained my trust. They knew my parents were divorced. They knew that nobody was usually home in my house. They knew I had 2 dogs. Like, just random intimate details that are very, like, used. And uh, like 90% of sex trafficking and trafficking just in general is grooming. You get this person to trust you so they don't fight back. Because let's be honest, whenever like we go to brush our cats, for example, it's easier when they trust you, right? It's easier when the cat trusts you and they're like, oh, this is my human does this. Well, instead of my human does this, it's my pimp or my boyfriend sells. Now, this is not entirely to blame on anybody except for the persecutors. I don't blame myself for it. I was 10 years old. I don't blame my parents for it because, yes, they should have been watching over my technology, but they didn't know. Do you think. Oh my gosh, what was her name? I'll insert it right here when I post up, but she got kidnapped And she was the first online kidnapping case. Do you think her parents knew that something like that would have happened? Nobody knows when stuff is gonna happen like that. Except for the traffickers, of course. Sex trafficking in person started when I was about 13, as I said. And this girl that I had a sleepover with, I barely knew her. It's like her first sleepover ever. She just got to town. I wanted to be really welcoming. And she gave me this guy's Snapchat. And I was like, oh my god, he's so cute and all this stuff. Well, come to find out, he's 14 years older than me. And I was like, oh, that's fine. It's fine, right? Wrong. Very, very freaking wrong. I got love bombed. One thing that I can never forget is that he told me he strapped a bomb onto a child's chest and that child blew up in Afghanistan. Now, the reason why I smile at that is because he's never gone to basics. Ever. He lives locally. I asked people about it. Never disappeared for like 2 to 3 months. Nothing. So, I started dating him, and he said he wanted me to be the stepmother to his children. He had 3 kids with somebody he had already groomed and raped and trafficked. And like he started to come over and like hang out at my dad's house because my dad was never there really. And then he would drive me over to his house. We'd hang out there. Eventually, like he raped me, and it wasn't statutory. And then one day I was like 15. I showed up to his basement because that's where he lived, in his mom's basement, of course. No, I wasn't 15. I was 14, and my friend dropped me off because she was 16. And so he was like, I saw these people sitting on the couch, and I was like, what's going on? And he said, you're going to have to, and then insert any of the sexual acts that he told me to do. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to do that. And so he put a gun against my head, and he hit me with the bottom of the barrel, the gun. He said, you're going to, or this gun will be down your throat, and a bullet will be up your head. So I did it. I did all that stuff. And apparently I earned him a lot of money because I continued to do that stuff for him. And finally I was like, I'm done. I'm running away like from him. I'm blocking him on everything, right? Worst move. Because his friends know who I am. His family knows who I am. He knows where I live. He actually never got into contact with me, because I had previously mentioned that my father is very close with the police in town. And so he never followed me after that. But I went to his friend as a form of revenge, because I'm at this point 15, and I'm like, that's so edgy, and I'm gonna find a new guy. And he treated me the exact same. The second in-person pimp treated me the exact same, except for instead of physical abuse, when I was getting black eyes every day, my heart was breaking every day because I was emotionally abused and verbally abused. My self-esteem went through the ground. I had an eating disorder. I started doing drugs, like hard drugs. I was smoking weed for a long time, but hard drugs, as in like meth, hard. Like I would do that stuff. And I had an eating disorder, like all this stuff just came on, and baggage for 7 years. Well, almost 7 years when I overdosed. I went to the hospital and I was revived, and I went to a treatment facility for 6 months. And being away from the life as a 16-year-old, and like that's what I knew for 6 years, it was like weird. It was really weird. Like imagine going on the world's worst kids or the world's strictest parents or whatever that show is. They went into another person's house and they lived their life. That's how it felt. And treatment, like, is no joking matter. You don't get anything. You don't get makeup brushes, you don't get glass in your makeups, like mirrors. You can't have those. You can't have shoelaces, you can't have tank tops most of the time, like you can't have perfume. Just all this stuff that you wouldn't think of. You can't even have shampoo and conditioner in your room. So when I got out 6 months later, I was elated. It's April, I'm 17, I'm thriving, and boom, I want drugs. And I went right back to drugs. For a month, I went right back to drugs. And then I was with my first pimp when I went back. And you might ask, like, why did you go back? Well, why do most toxic relationships? Why do the victims usually go back? It's trauma bond. So when I did go back, I was like, oh my fuck, we're here. We're back in the cycle. We are the perpetual statistic of America. And thank God, this social worker came to my door. Not my door, but his door. And said, you're coming with me, Sarah, because you ran away. She knew I didn't, like, run away. She knew I could have gone back home. Or I couldn't have gone back home if I wanted to. So she worded it like that. Thank God. And that lady took me to a holding place, and she was like, what's going on? And I'm like, insert past, like, 6-7 years of my life. And she's like, oh, well, we're gonna get you another treatment, because that other treatment wasn't really the most successful for you. But it's gonna be a month-long wait, and you're moving in with your sister's friend. And I was like, okay. So for that month, I couldn't have a phone, didn't really know anybody besides my sister's friends, and that was, like, the safest I've ever been for 7 years. And so I went to the last treatment facility, and I got out 2023. December 21st, 2023, and it is now, as I'm recording this, it's January 10th of 2024. And to be out and, like, looking retrospectively of what I've lived through, there's so much light. I got so lucky that I'm still here. Not because I did drugs, not because I was running away and that's dangerous because I could have been killed, right? No. I'm lucky that I survived because of my own accord. I'm lucky that I was the one being like, I'm living through this. Like, screw every single person here, I'm living through this. And I'm going through this. And anyone can say, I've heard it before, anyone can say, you had a choice, you could have just, like, blocked them on social media. No, I didn't. I told them I'm blocking them, and they sent me my home address before I even told them. So at this point, I just was thrown in the towel, but not all the way. I left a little piece of string for me and grabbed a string every single time I needed. And I'm back with my own towel. The light at the end of the tunnel, all I can say is TFCBT, trauma-based cognitive behavioral therapy, one of the best things anyone could ever invest in, as well as getting a trafficking awareness, like a trafficking advocate, and court advocate, and fighting your word. Because your words matter. Everyone's words matter. They can affect you negatively or positively. But seeing in the fact of, like, not all of my perpetrators have gone to jail, but a lot of them have, and a lot of them have gone to prison after. It's good to know that the future generation won't have to deal with this many people. But let's talk about facts of sex trafficking. Yeah? Native American women make up 90% of abuse victims and sex trafficking victims. And people can turn and say, oh, Native men are so violent then. They're not violent. 96% of those perpetrators are not Native. white people enslaving other people. Usually it started in the Mesopotamia era, of course, because everything has a very beginning, but at its worst, it's here. If you were to add all of the slaves from before the 1900s, it would still be less than how many sex trafficking victims are here surviving today. And that's disgusting. Especially as somebody who is part of the next generation, who is part of the younger generation. Seeing ancestral mistakes being repeated over and over and over again. It's like watching World War I and then World War II, and now we're coming about World War III. What are we doing? What are we doing? This isn't helping anybody. It is the second most organized crime. Drugs being the first, which they're interlaced. They go within each other. Sure, mafias aren't really like a big thing anymore, but it started out as a mafia. And that moved to like Bloods and Crips. And now it's moving to the cartel. It's everybody. Everybody in the drug universe has messed with sex trafficking in some way. They've sold to a pimp to give it to their kid. They've sold to a John to give it to their kid. They've sold it to a kid to pull a trick. Like, what are we doing now? It needs to be talked about, but it does not need to be romanticized. Like gang TikTok? The hell is that? Mafia talk? No. Throw it away. We don't need it anymore. We don't need the justification and romanticizing of violence. That's not what we need. What we need is to listen to victims. And listen before we speak. Listen and process and then ask. Instead of interrupting. Because that's just rude, first of all. And second of all, like, you're gonna shut somebody down when they do that. Because they've always been, like, here's everyone else's volumes, here's the victim's volumes. If you go down here, they can finally be heard. But not until you come down. We need to not romanticize people, like, their stories. Unless it's, like, a beautiful, like, love story of two consenting adults who are, like, 3 years apart at most. And they fall in love and there's no hate and it's a Disney story without the grim background, the brothers' grim background. Fine. We can romanticize that, but not romanticizing, pedophilia, not romanticizing drug use, not romanticizing gang violence, organized crime in any way, shape, or form, slavery of any kind. Sex trafficking is slavery. It is slavery, and it is commercial slavery being used by people all the way up in the legislative branch. We also cannot shut down people's voices. We cannot. Because a victim never is heard. Most of the time they're never heard. They're always shut down. You're making this up. You were 10 when you started. That's BS. A child. These people, victims, should not be going to jail. Should not be going to jail for prostitution. It should be looked backwards. Why was she prostituting? Where was she coming from? Where did she live? Was there another girl with her? If so, where did they both live? Because chances are they live together. Who owns that house? Who owns the apartment? Look deeper into this story and be able to realize child sexual trafficking victims are not child prostitutes. They are not sex workers. They didn't choose this. They're not adults. They did not consent to it. With that, I will leave this there. Thank you for listening. If you like, share your comments in the story. Open up to me in my socials. You don't have to add me. I am a free account. I'll listen. I'll give advice if you'd like, but I'll always listen first. Thank you for watching.